Hello and welcome to Consider the Truth. My name is Scott and my goal is to help anyone listening to apply greater truth to their life. Today I wanted to make a video because I think yesterday Ray Dalio, he's a multi-billionaire investor who predicts what he thinks is going to happen in the future, and he makes investments and decisions based on what he thinks. And so he's been very successful doing so. And yesterday he came out and said that he thinks there's probably about a 30% chance of a civil war in the United States. And so I wanted to look in the Book of Mormon and see about their civil wars and things that they've gone through. And so looks like my head's on Captain Moroni. Captain Moroni attacked the Nephite people 4 times in the Book of Mormon. And I think it's important that he put things above just being a Nephite. It's not enough just to be a Nephite, but he put laws and God above all else. And so let's see what happened here. The first time was in Alma, chapter 46, and the chapter heading says, Amalickiah conspires to be king. Moroni raises the title of liberty. He rallies the people to defend their religion. True believers are called Christians. A remnant of Joseph will be preserved. Amalickiah and the dissenters flee to the land of Nephi. Those who will not support the cause of freedom are put to death. Verse 4 says, And Amalickiah was desirous to be a king, and those people who were wroth were also desirous that he should be their king, and they were the greater part of them, the lower judges of the land, and they were seeking for power. Verse 10, Yea, we see that Amalickiah, because he was a man of cunning device, and a man of many flattering words, that he led away the hearts of many people to do wickedly, yea, to seek to destroy the church of God, and to destroy the foundation of liberty which God had granted unto them, or which blessing God had sent upon the face of the land for the righteous sake. And verse 35 says, And it came to pass that whomsoever of the Amalekites that would not enter into a covenant to support the cause of freedom, that they might maintain a free government, he caused to be put to death, and there were but few who denied the covenant of freedom. Okay, so that was the first time. This is the second time, 4 chapters later in Alma chapter 50. I think we all know these stories, but when we put them back to back to back like this, I think it gives us a greater lesson. It says, for the chapter heading, Moroni fortifies the lands of the Nephites. They build many new cities. Wars and destructions befall the Nephites in the days of their wickedness and abominations. Morianton and his dissenters are defeated by Teancum, and Teancum is one of the lower captains under Captain Moroni. And Nephiah dies, and his son Pahoran fills the judgment seat. Pahoran's going to come up again later. It says in verse 26, For behold, the people who possessed the land of Morianton did claim a part of the land of Lehi. Therefore there began to be a warm contention between them, insomuch that the people of Morianton took up arms against their brethren, and they were determined by the sword to slay them. And so stubborn were the people of Morianton, being inspired by his wickedness and his flattering words, that a battle commenced between them, and the which Teancum did slay Morianton, and defeat his army, and took them prisoners. And 36 says, And thus were the people of Morianton brought back, and upon their covenanting to keep the peace, they were restored to the land of Morianton, and a union took place between them and the people of Lehi, and they were also restored to their land. So in both times they were required to make a covenant of peace and to uphold the laws of the land. Next chapter, third time, the kingmen seek to change the law and set up a king. Pahoran and the freemen are supported by the voice of the people. Moroni compels the kingmen to defend their country or be put to death. Amalickiah and the Lamanites capture many fortified cities, Morianton and Lehi being some of those fortified cities that got captured in the next chapter. Teancum repels the Lamanite invasion and slays Amalickiah and his tent. So verse 13 says, And it came to pass that when the men who were called kingmen had heard that the Lamanites were coming down to battle against them, they were glad in their hearts, and they refused to take up arms, for they were so wroth with the chief judge, and also with the people of liberty, that they would not take up arms to defend their country. Almost sounds like they hated their country. And it came to pass that there were 4,000 of those dissenters who were hewn down by the sword, and those of their leaders who were not slain in battle were taken and cast into prison, for there was no time for their trials at this period. Verse 20 says, and the remainder of those dissenters, rather than be smitten down to the earth by the sword, yielded to the standard of liberty, and were compelled to hoist the title of liberty upon their towers and in their cities, and to take up arms in defense of their country. 21, and thus Moroni put an end to those kingmen, that they were not any known by the appellation of kingmen, and thus he put an end to the stubbornness and the pride of those people who professed the blood of nobility, but they were brought down to humble themselves like unto their brethren, and to fight valiantly for their freedom from bondage. All right, and then the fourth time is chapter 62. It says, Moroni marches to the aid of Pahoran in the land of Gideon. The kingmen who refuse to defend their country are put to death. Pahoran and Moroni retake Nephiah. Many Lamanites join the people of Ammon. Teancum slays Amaron and is in turn slain. The Lamanites are driven from the land, and peace is established. Helaman returns to the ministry and builds up the church. Verse 9, it says, the men of Pachus received their trial according to the law, and also those kingmen who had been taken and cast into prison, and they were executed according to the law. Yea, those men of Pachus and those kingmen, whosoever would not take up arms in the defense of their country, but would fight against it, were put to death. And thus it became expedient that this law should be strictly observed for the safety of their country. Yea, and whosoever was found denying their freedom was speedily executed according to the law. Now, I thought it was interesting that when Mormon compiled the Book of Mormon, he included such great detail into these battles, where a lot of times, like in the book of Nephi, he says there were battles. We waged the sword of Laban against the Lamanites, and that's about it. Like, he doesn't get into it. But in this part, there's a lot of details, a lot of strategy, and a lot of politics, and a lot of just the intricacies of these battles. And there has to be a reason for why he included all of that information. So anyway, I thought some people might find it interesting. I think we're living in interesting times, and I think reading this in context of what's happening today would be interesting. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Thanks. Bye.